right. So, welcome to another episode of Personality Typing with Habib. This is going to be a little bit of a special episode where we're just going to be reviewing the different types that I got from episode 1 all the way through episode 21. And one of the most important things is to know that there's no type accuracy guarantees. So, that's basically because I am doing the typing. No one else is really I'm not really taking anyone else's word for what the types are. So, it's just going off of my opinion of what the different types are. And so there's different celebrities, and I chose all 21 of these people for specific reasons. And I think it's nice to just kind of reflect on who these people are, what makes them interesting, what makes them worth listening to at all for any amount of time. I'm not saying, anything in particular about them, but I do think most of them have spoken up a little bit about what happened in Gaza and Palestine, stuff like this. But among other things, they're going places in their lives. They're doing really well in their field. But basically, there's a review episode, and it's season 1. So we're going to be getting into season 2 after this, where I might change up the topics and the types of people I'm looking at. I might look at some weird people, some sketchy people, and yeah, let me know who you want me to type next. But in this episode, we're going to just be going over the previous 21 people, and so this is a different kind of content that I don't know if you've ever seen before, but yeah, we're going to be going over things very briefly. Just review each one of the 21 people, go over some key patterns and insights from these people and why did I choose these people, or like what's special about them. And yeah, and then just moving forward, what is season 2 going to be about? What are you guys in the mood for listening to or watching? Who do you want to get typed? We can see how the future goes in that sense. But yeah, anyway, without further ado, let's go into typing the 21 people or reviewing the types. So this was I feel like it was like 8 or 9 months ago. I typed Zohran Mamdani, who's down there. So I guess, yeah, I probably should have. Yeah, anyway, these are the 21 people. And yeah, we have a different thumbnail for each person. I think I didn't do a thumbnail for Asmongold, but yeah, anyway. Yeah, and there's a playlist. So we're just going to keep going. So this is just season 1. We're going to have more episodes coming, more people getting typed. And I'll let you know who the next person is. But yeah, the goal of this video is just to talk a little bit, reflect a little bit about each celebrity that was typed, go over some key takeaways and some interesting juxtaposition of what their personality type is versus what their behavior is. Is there anything interesting about that? Or, a lot of people just play out their personality. We have, in a way, less free will than you would think. But on some level, we always have free will. And I think most, if not all of these people are doing something special for their lives to go pretty well, or to have an impact. So anyway, personality typing subjects from 21 celebrities. We're just going to be looking at a few images of each person, as well as the type I got, versus, I might be unsure of certain coins, certain aspects and traits about these people. But generally, I'm pretty confident about at least the MBTI type. I'm pretty confident about the MBTI type for these celebrities, or at least it's not too far off. So first off, we have Zohran Mamdani, who I went to high school with, but in Bronx Science. Same year, actually. And my guess for him is INFJ. So in the objective personality system, he's actually an INFJ jumper, where my original guess was even NIFI, but I retyped him as NITI. And my current guess is MFNITI, sleep last, play, consume last, number 2. So it's kind of an incongruent social type to what his actual type is, because IJs are usually building things slowly. But when you have a number 2 person out there who's a generalist, they're working on many projects. And so one of the things that we can kind of take away from looking at Zohran is that he was very good at stating his policies, like his top 3 policies. And so that was really helpful for getting his campaign successful, getting people to kind of campaign for him, and talk about his good sides. Yeah, so that was Zohran, and yep, he's mayor of New York City now. But when I typed him, he was just a candidate who might not have won. But anyway, episode 2 was Asmongold. So now we go from an IJ to an EP, but this is a different kind of EP where he has consumed sleep in his top 2 animals, which just means he's more introverted. He's one of the most introverted versions of this MBTI type. ENFPs are typically more outgoing. They're typically, playing with everyone, in the idea space, brainstorming and all this. But Asmongold does not leave his house. He seems to have had a traumatic upbringing, a tough childhood, and he had to take care of his mom for some time. Anyway, but it's interesting to see how he takes his bad situation and tries to make something of it. So it gives a lot of people hope that even when you're at the rock bottom of your life, that you can still, work hard and make something of yourself, even if you're still stuck there and you technically don't want to leave your house. You can still be successful by some measures. I think, it's a pretty interesting life, though I don't really agree with a lot of what he says these days, but he definitely forms his own opinion. And I think that is kind of the metacognitive lesson to take, is that you want to be able to form your own opinion and stand on it. So that's something that I do take away from watching Asmongold. Next, we have Hasan Piker, who definitely got more fame more recently. I don't know if I had anything to do with that. I'm just kidding. But yeah, the MBTI type guess I have for him is ENTP. Now, I don't know what exact kind of ENTP he is. He reminds me a tiny bit of Ryan Reynolds, who is FENE. So that's why I'm kind of comfortable sticking with the NEFE guess. But part of me really wanted to guess in the direction of NETI. So your standard ENTP versus your jumper ENTP is kind of what I'm deciding between. But this guy, the thing to learn from him is just kind of being dedicated to your craft and spending a lot of time on getting good at what you're doing. And eventually people are going to recognize you. Like his own family didn't recognize what he did, and, people who are his colleagues, a lot of people basically count him out and bet against him, but he just kept going and keeps working hard, and it eventually works out. So I think he might even be a blaster. There are a few coins that I'm not sure about when it comes to Hasan Piker. But I think any of the success he has now is well deserved. He definitely works really hard, and he kind of has that NEFE look, kind of like Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek, I think is the TV show. But yeah, that's I'm not exactly 100% on the type exactly, but that would be a good one to study. But yeah, and the social type, it's possible he's number 1, but I think he has way too much deep knowledge to not be a social 3. And that's going to be one of the recurring themes with a lot of the people that we're seeing, is that specialization is quite an important thing when it comes to actually knowing what you're talking about and going deeper in certain knowledge bases. So then we have episode 4 with Miss Rachel. So I thought, we typed a lot of dudes by now, and get some females in the, typing. And, my daughter watched Miss Rachel for a bit, and so that was nice. And so I guessed in terms of ISTJ. So she reminded me of a few INTJs, but I saw that she was really good with the sensory. So I think the thing to take away from this is that, while she's able to speak up about certain issues, she's not only producing with the blast, she's not only building things with her, content, but she's also able to pay attention to what's going on in the world. And, how she speaks up for all kinds of children, no matter which country they're from, I think that that's a very good universal principle. And she has, you know, a goal or a mission to be a little bit like Mr. Rogers, or a lot like him, in terms of just like uplifting humanity as a whole. And so that's something that, you know, in a way I hope to do on some level. And it's nice to see Miss Rachel kind of go after that. But yeah, it's higher consciousness and it's good to see. Yeah, so Mehdi Hasan, we do know about him at least from the news reporting that he does. And yeah, he took on, like, while he is kind of politically on the left, you know, he's willing to debate. He's one of the few people who's actually willing to debate people on the right. And that's kind of like a big thing, a big lesson to take. And, you know, I guessed him as an ESTP, which is kind of a debating type of person. You know, one click off of an ENTP, right, which is known as the debater. But what Mehdi has is he has the facts, and he has, you know, the ability to kind of punch back and hold people accountable. So I think there are a few negative qualities with him, but like mostly it's good. And he's willing to talk things out with people and get people to see what his perspective is. But I think, you know, of course, you need to be listening as well to what other people are saying, and that could be a weak spot that he can work on. But mostly it's good that he's able to speak up and able to take on his enemies, or his, you know, the people on the opposite side of his arguments or his beliefs. I think that's a good thing to learn from. So episode number 6, I wanted to keep things lighter, and so I decided to type a comedian who I was hoping was NF, but yeah, in a lot of ways he's an ENFP, Bassem Youssef. I think he's from Egypt. And yeah, but my current guess is that he might be NETE. But either way, he is an ENFP that is more on the NF side, finds a humor in really dark subjects, which is a challenge for me, which is what I want to get to be able to do. But this is this is the challenge, is like, can you take a dark subject and like make fun of it, make light of it? Yeah, so anyway, that's my guess is for him as a ENFP. And he had some viral moments with Pierce Morgan where he was very sarcastic, so it's like a masterclass in sarcasm. And yeah, just your number 4 kind of funny guy. But when you're being funny about really dark things, it's that's very interesting to watch, to say the least. And speaking of which, you know, I wanted to keep the mood light when I was doing these back to back. So episode 7 was another comedian who happens to also have some NT, but he is an ISTP jumper. So an MBTI, he would be an ISTP. Maybe he would type himself as an INTP. But yeah, at least in this system, you know, when you're looking at all these coins, when you're extrapolating beyond the 16 types, the ISTP jumper is a very interesting one where, you know, you have all these patterns that you're building on, you know, and it becomes kind of like, you know, in a way, the way, you know, Jerry Seinfeld built up his jokes. You know, I hate to make that comparison, but, you know, it's one of the best ways to kind of describe what these comedians are doing. It's kind of like rapping a little bit. And so, you know, I was not sure between MF and FF for him, but I think there's a little bit of rapping that's going on some level. And so I'm willing to stick with the MF guess. But yeah, I think, you know, it's very intellectual humor. It's very smart, but that can be too much for comedy. You know, on the other side of the spectrum, you got Kevin Hart, who is SEFE. So that's you know, you don't have to think as hard. But then with Sammy Obeid, you know, you're having to think a little bit in terms of math and all this stuff. I did see him live, and yeah, some of his jokes do make you think a lot, and he kind of judges you for that. It's like, oh, is this audience smart enough to get what I'm saying? And yeah, that can be exhausting in its own way. So episode 8, we're one third the way through, and episode 8, we went with a younger person, super young dude, at least at this time, Hamzah Saadah, who is an INFJ according to me, but he could be in ENTP. I don't know. But at least from what I was seeing, is he was an extroverted person with NT, and he was just able to kind of talk to people in Israel, even though he is Palestinian. So he's able to kind of talk to different people, debate them on various things. So I think it's good to see the double deciding, good to see him kind of confront the people he doesn't like and just talk to them. And that was very bold and interesting and courageous and brave to me. But I think he kind of made it into his thing. And so he's just doing it repeatedly. And I find that to be super interesting and pretty inspiring for someone who's so young. And he did end up interviewing Jill Stein, who ran for third party spot on the US president race. And my guess for her is that she's an INTP, but like a very extroverted one, a very extroverted INTP who understands exactly, like with laser precision, what's wrong with the system. And, whether her solution or her existence is the solution or not, that's not really worth discussing. But I think the idea of pinpointing that we do need a third party, I think that that's very important for at least people in the United States of America to consider as part of the solution. But yeah, I mean, I'm fairly certain on her type. I think that, I put not sure, but I'm pretty sure about double feminine, TINE, consume, play, blast, sleep, last, number 3. Feel pretty good about that. She might be a number 1. I don't know. The social type might be off, but it's interesting to watch her really stand up for people all over the world. At least that's what she claims. With politicians, you never know for sure what they really believe, but at least the solution sounds good to me. Or, the third party thing, I mean. Episode 10 was Cornel West. So he's a philosopher dude and he knows a lot about a lot of things. I think my original guess was something like double masculine NETE, but ENFP. But I'm now seeing that he's more of like an ENTP, so that's MFNETI, consume, play, blast, sleep, blast, number 4. He's a very friendly guy, and he was maybe too friendly to be in politics, so that's why his third party run didn't exactly work out. But he's good at preaching. He's very good at using his extroverted feeling to talk about, what are the pains, what are the problems, and to combine the actual philosophy and the logic and theology with politics. I think that is a very difficult thing to do, and he accomplishes that somehow. But there's always going to be pluses and minuses with people. But I think there's a lot of interesting things to take away from the way he combines, that kind of feeling talk with politics, which is very hard to do. But some people do it. It sounds almost like Martin Luther King Jr., and I mean, it's very interesting to listen to him speak and all that. But you kind of have to be in the mood for it, I guess. At least on the issue of Gaza, Palestine and Israel, I think that listening to Norman Finkelstein is generally a good idea. He has a lot of that history down. I think he's an INTP, possibly FM. He reminded me a little bit of Lex Friedman, but someone who actually has their stuff together. He debated destiny at some point, and that was kind of a joke. And there's a lot of funny things with Norman Finkelstein. I think he's a very funny guy and knowledgeable. But, he will be the first to tell you, read these other people, read these other things. But it's good to hear from someone who is so familiar with the issues, between, Israel, Palestine, and, the rest of the world, There's a lot to learn, and so I think that that's like a good starting point. You know, uh, for me, there's very little that I knew a few years ago, and I definitely learned a lot from Norman Finkelstein, and I kind of recommend him as like one of the go-to people, which is hard. It's hard to find good sources. If you have some, let me know in the comments. Yeah, and then episode 12, we had Briahna Joy Gray, who is a commentator. She's on YouTube, and my guess for her was INFJ. I'm not sure if she's still in INFJ. I mean, if I got her type correct, some people are saying she's an ENTP. I don't know. But at least my latest guess was double feminine NITI sleep last play number one. She did debate Charlie Kirk, which I thought was interesting. So and then having the lawyer background, it does scream more on the NT side of things. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting listening to her, and maybe I should get penalized for every time I say the word interesting. But yeah, I don't really remember all that much other than, she is definitely platforming certain individuals that I do like to listen to. And I think she has a somewhat of a grasp on the issues. It's just sometimes it's hard to know where people stand. I think I mostly agree with the things she says, but I wonder if how much of it is like, what she really believes, or, yeah. Anyway, it's easy to get disillusioned with people, but at least they're speaking up, and I think that that's kind of the first step, is to get in the arena. And so here we have Sabs, who also has a YouTube show. And I guess that she's an ENFP. She's easy for me to listen to because she's kind of more friendly. She might be a number 4, actually, if she's not a number 3. But she definitely has specialization in there. And she reminds me of a few ENFPs that I know of. And yeah, it's I'm just not sure about the animal stack, which is the level of extroversion and introversion. Is she super extroverted, or is she a little bit more on the introverted side as an ENFP? So yeah, your more ambiverted ENFPs are going to be kind of consume, play, sleep, blast, last. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to, yeah, I should, oh man, stop saying that. But yeah, she definitely platforms good people as well, and she's kind of on the latest of what's going on as far as the news goes, which is interesting, which is good for the from a personality perspective, because it's not enough that you understand how you think and you understand how you're dealing with problems, but when you're looking at politics or current situations, you're able to see where your brain gets stuck. And there are certain truths that people keep themselves from, that people like Sabs are constantly confronting the truth, getting on like the latest people who have something of value to add. And the challenge to you, it's not just about keeping up with the latest news, it's about, is your mind able to easily digest who is telling a lie and what is the actual truth? So yeah, I think it does have, pretty good content on YouTube and such things. All right, so episode 14, we have Javier Bardem, and yeah, he's an ESTP, although I previously guessed that he's an ENFJ. Same functions, but yeah, my original typing was FESC. My current guess is more SCFE. But yeah, he's a number 4 friendly, tribe motivated ESTP who is speaking up on issues, and he's also a great actor. He did a good job in Dune, which is where I saw him. Yeah, so what more is there to say about Javier? I think it's good to not only, have certain beliefs about current issues and realities, but you're also speaking up about them. Yeah, that's a hard thing to do in a, when your coworkers or colleagues are not speaking up about something, but you are. It takes a certain kind of person. It takes a strong character. So what I'm saying is, like, take this time to say that everyone I've talked about up until this point, they are generally strong characters. And I think it can be very difficult to live in this world where you're not really speaking up for the problems that you're going through, that you've been taught to, basically shut the fuck up and keep moving. So it's people like Javier Bardem that are actually speaking about the atrocities in Gaza and Palestine and, elsewhere as well. And yeah, we have a need as a society and as a member of the human race to actually speak up when, you're seeing some, fucked up shit, basically. So yeah, I think Javier Bardem is a great example, excellent example of someone who's not only just an actor but also speaking up. I think he had a pretty good view on he had a pretty good segment on The View, which I covered in the episode I did for him. But yeah, so Javier Bardem, ESTP, Sleep Last, very extroverted, good guy. But I think the one problem with him, I think he made an excuse for someone in Hollywood that is problematic. I forget exactly who that person is, but we all have blind spots. So yeah. I mean, nobody's perfect. Yeah. Anyway, episode 15 is Rachel Zegler. So she did Snow White. She's an actress and singer. And my guess was ESFP. She's still an ESFP. I forget what exactly I guessed in terms of the letters. But yeah, I think she's some kind of number 4. I might have guessed her as a number 1 originally, but she's pretty friendly and very talkative. The only thing is that she might be more extroverted than I gave her credit for. She might be play, blast, consume, sleep. I don't know. That would make her SETE, but she is very much an ESFP. Definitely feels like my functions. I'm also an ESFP. And so, yeah, it was good to do an episode with another ESFP here. And yeah, so she's she's also speaking up here and there for things. And yeah, that's the thing, is like, you want to do your job and also be able to practice your freedom of speech. I think that that's pretty much key. That's a good sign of life, that you're still alive and have some sense of agency, which I'm not sure a lot of people have. Yeah, I mean, it's the best test for it, whether people are right or wrong at this point. If you just want to check if you have freedom of speech, you should just try it. Say the thing that you think you can't say. So yeah, Greta Thunberg, I guessed her as an INTP. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of INTPs. I guessed her as a standard INTP. She might have the jumper variant. I'm not sure, but I'm currently just sticking with my original guess, which was TINE, extroverted intuition, over introverted sensing. But it's still possible that she has introverted sensing over the extroverted intuition, which just means you're jumping over that NE in that situation. But yeah, Greta Thunberg is an excellent example of a young person who's just not bullshitting. She's not beating around the bush and just going straight for, hey, this world is burning down. I need to speak up about it. And so she did from a young age. And then she was brilliant enough to see the connection between climate change or the world trending downwards. She saw the connection between that and war, which is, I'd applaud for that. I'd applaud that, because a lot of people just think climate change is just on its own, but there are certain machines in terms of the system, the systemic machinery of the institutions, of the industrial complexes, the military industrial complex, things like this, that are just, those gears are just turning for war. and it's not turning off because it's just such massive levers are just being pulled by certain individuals for there to just be war and more war, and they just hide it from the media. And people like Greta Thunberg speak up and go, be activists about it because no one else is really talking about it, and the grown-ups are not really doing anything. And her existence basically calls out the cowardice of prior generations, whether it's boomers, Gen X, even millennials, silent generation. We got a lot of cowards that are older than Greta. And so Greta's existence kind of calls everybody out, which is awesome, which is great, because we all could be doing more, could be saying more, and we could be challenging the system, because she's not an EP, she's an IP. And as an INTP, she sees the system's breaking and people need to do things to, fix the system or create a better system, something. Yeah. Well, speaking of IPs, we got Francesca Albanese, who is, older than Greta and doing her part in speaking up for the Palestinian territories, which is her actual job description. And it's to remain balanced. So that was an interesting thing to watch, is watching her double observe as an INFP go back and forth between the sensing and the intuition of the definition of the word genocide. So if you want to understand what a genocide is, you go listen to Francesca Albanese's description of it, explanation of it. Why is it a genocide that's happening? Why is it that Israel is committing a genocide against Palestine? And now they're doing things to Lebanon as well that could be classified as such. And, you want to go over those definitions. And, people say the UN is useless, but this might be one of the only people who's actually working at the UN, at least that I know of. But yeah, it's really cool to see that double observing happen. And also number threes, when it's your job and something actually happens where you could do something and you're in the correct position to do something about it. That's what I learn and take away from Francesca Albanese. And combined with Greta, it's about doing something and taking action, even though you think that your voice doesn't matter. Is because no one else will be speaking up if you don't. It's pretty silent world out there. And then we have episode 18, Dua Lipa, who is a singer and songwriter. So not just a singer, songwriter too. ESTP is my guess as far as MBTI goes. And then the full personality type is more along the lines of double feminine, SETI, consume play of some kind. I don't know if she's consume play blast or consume play sleep, but definitely some kind of ESTP. Yeah, she's very easy to talk to, at least from what it looks like interview wise. And she's very outgoing, or, she shares her ideas freely. And it's good to see what she's thinking about. That's that's an ESTP for you. But yeah, just tackling the hard issues, writing songs about them, and singing, and yeah, it's been a while since I looked at Dua Lipa in terms of what she has to say, but it's pretty straightforward. That's how you get the ESTP versus ESFP difference, is that the ESTPs are a bit more, they'll tell you what they're thinking. And I think she had an interesting process when it came to journaling. And so that's something to really think of. In terms of, anyone can learn from that, is when you're journaling, you're writing down your thoughts and you're seeing, how you're developing an idea. And yeah, anyway, sometimes I just don't have that much to say because I don't really remember. And that's what this episode is all about, is just kind of going off the cuff if if I have things to say. So this Liam Cunningham was, my favorite actor on Game of Thrones. And yeah, my guess for him was that he's an ENFP, Now, I could be getting some letters wrong there. He could be an INTP, I don't know, secretly. But at least as far as I am seeing, he is an ENFP. I think he also could be an ISTP, but anyway. He reminded me a lot of the Ron Swanson or whatever that double masculine ENFP dude is on Parks and Recreation. He's got that mustache and beard. But I think the lesson to take is that if you have a mustache and beard, you should speak up for people. And it was just interesting to see that in his show in Game of Thrones, he spoke up for the person who was kind of cast aside. He did that, as an actor, acting. His characters would stand up for the weak people, and his real life character would also do that, And I think it's so cool to see people not only act in fiction as a good and strong character or a moral compass, which he was in Game of Thrones, but to also be a moral compass for people in real life. And that is currently not valued as much as it should be, is the whole moral compass thing. And that's a good thing for me to contemplate on or think about. And I would say that anyone would benefit from having a moral compass and using it. It's a pretty psychopathic world out here, but it doesn't have to be. And you could be that change. And so that's what I took from Liam Cunningham. And episode 20 is this guy who went viral on YouTube, Professor Jiang. He is a content creator and high school teacher, not a professor. But he does teach things really well because he is an ISTP who knows things, how everything works. He might be double feminine in the sense that his intuition and thinking are both masculine. And he's a number 3, possibly, if not a number 1. And he has consume last. So he's a very extroverted ISTP, which you don't really see that many of. But he's able to break down concepts and principles and use game theory and use multiple theories to kind of fuel predictions. And so it's very interesting to see. And I'm saying interesting because he's NT, right? And it is genuinely that, because you're using multiple theories to come up with a prediction. And that's a really cool model of how he uses game theory and how he uses multiple principles and concepts in order to develop the next concept beyond that. So anyway, we got this ISTP jumper in the form of Professor Jiang. And he's got a lot of good videos out there. Speaking of which, he did do some collaborations with Sneako, who is a content creator and not NT. He is very much in the SF game. I think he is SEFE, play blast, sleep, consume last. So it's very rare to get your consume last EPs because they're very extroverted. And, he does a lot of street interviews. That's how he initially got viral and where his content was way back in the day. But he is either a number 2 or a number 4. I'm not sure. But just the way he was able to be the second person to Kanye, second person to Andrew Tate, he has the friends coin in there. He has that tribe motivation in there somehow. And as an ESTP, he is doing a lot of cool things. He's out there in the world. He's not scared to leave his house like a lot of intuitives are. That's calling a lot of people out, I bet. But it's cool to see his double activated NF blast. I think that's really cool to see and hear, because he is always going on about the meaning of things and he's trying to get everyone on the same page. It's interesting that he converted to Islam in a way, and he's also trying to unite the Muslim people, actually. That's one of the things he's trying to do. It's a very difficult thing to do, but he's trying to do it. And that's, it takes a lot of blast and it takes a lot of extroverted feeling. But as an ESTP, he's able to tap into that and the energy of people and meeting people in real life where they're at. So yeah, he's a content creator, live streamer. Yeah, so that was good. That was 21 people. But yeah, it's freaking exhausting for me to talk about this many people. So that's why, and I didn't really plan exactly what to say. But I did plan this part in terms of the key patterns across all the typings. So pattern number 1 is that he is NT, so pattern number 1 is that a lot of these celebrities that I typed in the first 21 episodes are NT and not SF. There are very few people, we saw Sneako, Rachel Zegler, Javier Bardem, SF, but most of the other people are on the NT side or pretty high in NT. And yeah, so basically, like, what is nerdy versus popular? Right now, the current trends from what I'm seeing, who's speaking out against the atrocities in Gaza, perpetrated by certain people. And, is that popular to talk about? The answer is generally no, it's not really that popular. But the nerds are kind of seeing the patterns and seeing the connections and understanding what it means. And so a lot of the people who are talking about these kinds of things are going to be more on the NT side. That's kind of what I'm looking out for, is because it does make you less popular. So there's not going to be as many SF people talking about these things, or maybe there are. I just don't know them. I've not seen that as much. But I think as people kind of get it and it clicks in their head, the next couple of years, this year, next year, we'll see the SF start to catch up to what exactly is going on in the world. I myself am an ESFP, but I figured out a lot of how certain parts of the world work, and that's why I'm able to catch on to certain things. But a lot of the people in the world are not catching on to, what's going on in the war, why are things happening, and in that case, you're just not going to talk about it. And so that's why I think a lot of the people I typed who are vocal about the war, vocal about the genocide, they're going to skew more on the NT side because it's people who generally get it. But yeah, we'll see more people. We'll see more SF people do that. And speaking of which, I thought I typed one EJ at least out of the 21, but turns out there's probably zero. Probably zero of the 21 people I typed were EJs. A few of them were IJs, though some of those might actually be EPs. I don't know. But I mostly typed EPs, IPs, some IJs, and virtually no EJs. And so one of the things is that the current climate of politics, of the world, of reality, is that things are getting less safe generally, and we need people to speak up and find courage. And generally, it's sad to say, but that might not be the EJ. There are certain EJs I know who, in terms of like, I have one that I'm planning to type, but it's hard to find EJs that are speaking up for the right things, because you're having to be vulnerable and you're having to basically get a lot of tribal support. And there's not that much tribal support because you're going to be pissing people off if you speak the truth. And so the people furthest from the truth might be the EJs. And I really hope that that's not true. I really hope that the EJs do speak up. There are some I know that do speak up and say the right thing, because it's not advantageous socially. It can be socially destructive for you to say the truth. Socrates got killed for that, right? Something like this. So yeah, that's a pattern that I'm seeing is, I was typing more of the EPs, IPs, and IJs. And so that's kind of averaging out to IPs. So I think that what I'm kind of currently trending towards is I do want myself and other people to be kind of stronger in standing in our own ground on our own feet, in terms of like speaking up about certain issues in general, because that is the way forward. I think that is the way to the next era. You know, a lot of the people I typed, they did end up like climbing in popularity like after I typed them. So I feel like these are people who are going in the right direction, or whatever thread I'm on, it is a good thread and the right thread where people do need to get stronger and be more bold and challenge the system a lot more. It can be dangerous, but it really doesn't have to be. And I think that more people should speak up and speak their truth, which is, you know, sounds like what the EJs want to do, is to speak their truth. But, you know, naturally and by default, it doesn't happen. So, you know, so if you're an EJ that speaks up, you're special and good, and that's awesome. And one of the people I did cover, in the Sneako class was Dan Bilzerian, who I think is doing a good job actually speaking up. And that's something that a lot of people could learn from, or I hope more EJs are able to do that kind of thing, because it is a little bit unapologetic. It does not sound good on the surface level, but things are going to go a lot deeper. And that's actually going to bring me to my next bullet point, which is pattern number 3 from these 21 typings, is that the social type 3 came up a lot. And if it wasn't the 3, it was the social type 4. And what they have in common is that they have specialize as a high social need over generalizing. Because generalists like me are, you know, and I'm the number 1 type, so I have generalizing higher than specialize. So generalizing, we are satisfied with being in the average or skilled area, but specialists want to get really good at a certain task. They really want to get good at the skills that they're working on. If they're going to get good at, you know, making sushi, or you know, some other thing, or like car mechanics, something like that, they're not going to just be average or skilled. They're going to go to the expert level. And so that's something that we actually need in society more now, in terms of people who understand the system at a much deeper level, not just the surface knowledge. We want deeper knowledge, whether it's, you know, politics, psychology, you know, economics, any topic, philosophy, spirituality. The surface knowledge isn't really going to help. You know, we have AI for that. You know, back when Google first came out, search engine, you know, you could just search for the things, you know, rather than talking to people. And now you can, if you want surface knowledge, you could just ask AI for the surface knowledge. But the deeper knowledge, you still have to go to the experts. And so, in a way, you know, we're all going to benefit from being able to develop deeper expertise, so that way, you know, the AI does not actually replace you in some way. But one of the big needs for this is that the system's breaking down, and the only way to really like put it back together or create a new system, bigger system, is like you actually need that deep knowledge in order to build a better system, because otherwise you're just going to be making the same mistakes and history is going to repeat itself. You know, without that deep knowledge, you know, a lot of mistakes are just going to continuously repeat, and it's going to be like, you know, that Groundhog's Day. Yeah, so pattern 4 is that we want to be using our freedom of speech, and there's a concept of the throat chakra, which I'll get to. But the idea is that there's maybe something that you're not willing to say because you're going to offend people there, you know. And with these 21 episodes that I did, they're all people who kind of risk, you know, put themselves at risk in order to speak about something, in order to say something. It might have even been like an online post or something written, or signing a letter. You know, a lot of actors signed letters about ceasefires and things like this. Even that is freedom of speech. So there's a number of ways to exercise your freedom of speech. And I think that all people, not just celebrities, but all people, regular people, could get a lot stronger from the inside out by using your freedom of speech and actually speaking up and speaking out. You know, whether anyone's listening or not, that's not actually the point. The point is for you to get good at the practice and the habit the habit of speaking up. And I think the people that need it the most are people who have the tribe above self, the EJs and, the EP jumpers like me or some IJs. We could really benefit a lot from speaking up and, unlocking that throat chakra or whatever. I don't really know that much about this, but I have here a visual, well, a bunch of words that mean something. But the idea is to kind of like unblock yourself, right? See if this is a problem for you. And I think a lot of people in society, most people in society have this issue, or at least, maybe that's projection on my part, but a lot of people are kind of feeling guilty or fearing speaking out. They're fearing rejection. Almost everyone I know is afraid of rejection, anxious about speaking, communicating, self-doubt. Virtually everyone I know has these issues, and that's actually a problem. It's something that we need to defeat in the current time. Right now, it's 2026. I think a lot of people are not speaking out on issues that they really should be speaking out on, because it's a struggle and it's a blocking of communication. And your throat will just get blocked up, basically. So you want to be able to communicate openly. And this is when your throat chakra, whatever, is in balance. You're going to be communicating openly and authentically with others. You're going to be non-judgmental. You're going to have healthy self-confidence, a relaxed jaw, relaxed neck and shoulders. When you're off balance, you'll be talking too much, too little, speaking without thinking, social anxiety, dishonesty, critical of self and others, neck pain, sore throat, mouth ulcers, earache. Anyway, the point is, I'm not an expert in whatever this chakra stuff is, but the idea is that a lot of people are kind of blocked in that ability to communicate openly and authentically with others. And I really hope that you and everyone just improve in this area, or put in the work for, just using your freedom of speech, practicing it like a habit, that kind of thing. So those are basically the patterns for the first 21 people. A lot of them were able to speak up. I think that was a general pattern. It was nice to see that we have certain, you could call them role models. They don't really have to be. They're just examples of people in society who are using their voice and using their platform to speak up about issues that they care about that might trigger certain people. And I think that's important. It's also important to listen, of course, but you also want to speak your truth and what you're going through. And if you see something crazy, you can speak about it and raise the global consciousness, raise the awareness of people, and do something about it. And because there's a lot of really weird stuff going on, and we ought to at the very least be on the same page about these things. If there's a fire and people don't agree that there's a fire because everyone's too scared to say something, then I think we have a problem. And right now that might be the place where we are at in society. So overall, I would say it was really nice to type people who are mostly using their freedoms, their free wills, and pushing their limits. There's a lot to learn from all of these people. There might be pros and cons, pluses and minuses with all these individuals. They might have issues here and there, but at least they're using their platform to speak about things that they care about. And we could, at the very least in our own lives, try our best at, writing what's on our mind, speaking about what's on our mind, and, standing 10 toes deep on the issues that we care about and speaking up on behalf of the people who are too weak to speak or not given the platform. And so that's something that I definitely take away from these 21 people. And it's good to speak on behalf of others who are in need, but also on behalf of yourself. You might have your own issues that need to be addressed. And so, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from all this, is that I appreciate at least some of the people here did say something on the level of free Palestine. And I'll say that as well, free Palestine. And because I think the genocide perpetrated by Israel is basically horrifying. I don't know what words kind of meet the, the event, that's been ongoing for decades, is really hard to put into words. So at least these people attempted to do something, say something. For the most part, not Asmongold. I don't know, call out a few people here, but I think, yeah, for the most part, they're speaking up about something, and at the very least, that's something, whether it's the issue of the day or not, or of the year or of the century. I think wherever you are in time, it's kind of an evergreen concept of just speaking up about, the issues in front of you, the issues of your day, and having that strength of character to really, talk truth to power, or talk truth in general, speak your truth. All right. So next, so that was that. 21 episodes wrapped up. In 2 weeks, the next season starts for Habib's personality typing show. There are a few directions I can go. Let me know if there's something in particular you'd like to see. Do you want to go in the darkness, or do you want to stay in the light? So that's, there are some darker individuals I could be typing as far as personality typing goes. And then there are some people in the light, and I'll give you an example for who I'm typing next. As someone who's more in the light, but one of the ideas, for example, is to type someone like the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, who is kind of going more, this is more in the darkness side of things. Like, if you want to see that, leave a comment. I'll address it in the way that I know best. And because part of me is like, oh, do I want to give it the time of day? Do I want to give it any attention at all? And that's really the challenge, right? Is, do you give any attention to the darkness? But if you don't, then what happens? What's going to grow in the dark, right? So that's kind of where my head is at. That's what I'm thinking about. But there's plenty of people in the light. And so the next person we're going to be typing, at least in this channel, personality typing with Habib, we're going to be typing Patrick Teahan. I think that's his name. He is a content creator on YouTube, and he's a childhood trauma specialist. I think he's a licensed social worker, and that'll be in 2 weeks, which is May 8th. And so, yeah, that will be episode 23, because this is kind of episode 22 because it's a review recap, but there's not really a celebrity. There were 2 other celebrities I did type, but those separate, edited video. But yeah, you had Professor Morandi and I think one of Mamdani's guys, I forgot his name. But yeah, so the next episode is in 2 weeks. Patrick Teahan, I think he's really, really good from as a therapist. Now, it's not actually therapy that they're doing. If it's a YouTube video, it's just a video, but it's still in a way, it can kind of feel a little bit like therapy. But that's not really what therapy is. So there you go. There's my specialist disclaimer. But honestly, everyone ought to get good at solving the root of their problems, not just the surface level stuff. And a lot of the problems are kind of rooted in childhood. But yeah, there's a balance to address your current reality and then digging deep into, where things are really coming from. But I think it can be therapeutic to, listen to this kind of thing. But anyway, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. And I see a comment here. Yo, Habib, I would like to see you type Andrew Wilson, the debater from The Crucible. If you're taking requests, that is. I'll check out who that is. I'll let you know. But yeah, cool. Yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe and comment below. Who do you want to see? Because the next season is open to whatever possibilities